Hey guys, welcome to the Bourbon College Podcast. I'm Austin. Let's get started. So today we're talking about, did the whiskey companies dupe you? Did they trick you? Also, we're going to review a High West bourbon, High West American Prairie bourbon to be exact. And then I'm going to read a review. I'm going to read that last segment of the show. I'm going to start reading either reviews people left or emails, questions, or interesting comments on my Instagram. It's going to be the mailbag corner at the end there. I'm still working on the name. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. So, it seems like it's a very popular topic right now, and of course, I'm going to jump in on it. Sourcing. Whiskey sourcing, bourbon sourcing specifically, has been a source of contention, pardon the pun, for a while now, but for some reason recently, everyone's talking about it. So what I'm going to do is kind of clear the air, kind of explain, in case you haven't heard before, what whiskey sourcing is, why is it bad, why is it not bad necessarily, and how some really good bourbons are made by sourcing. So first off, I want to say what sourcing is. Sourcing is a distillery or a company, and I'm still going to call them distilleries even if they don't distill their own whiskey, because to sell whiskey in the U.S. from as a company or quote unquote producer, you have to get a distiller's and rectifier's license. They are the same license, so by licensing they are technically distillers. So I'm going to keep calling them distillers even if they don't distill their own whiskey, like High West. It's the process of distillers getting whiskey from other distillers to sell it. Now, this could mean they are hiring another distillery to distill a bourbon with a mash bill they decide and a way they decide. They're just outsourcing it, or they could be buying pre-made stuff, or a mixture of in between. And I'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But let's go, for example, one of the biggest sourcing distilleries, one of the biggest distilleries making whiskey for other distilleries is MGP in Indiana. MGP, they're the big guys. They're the ones that they have a full menu, a long menu of different mash bills that you can order from. And you can get that in new make, or you can get that as pre-aged, different things like that. If you're big enough, they will do custom orders. You can tell them, hey, I want a mash bill that's exactly 51% corn, 25% rye, and 24% malted barley. And they'll be like, okay, that's fine. We'll do that for you. As long as you want 15 barrels plus, something like that. Other big distillers do that, or Dickel in Tennessee. I think Texas has a pretty big one for other Texas area distilleries. But almost anyone can do it. If you have extra whiskey, you can sell to someone else to sell. Heck, in Scotland, it is a big thing. And it's not frowned upon in Scotland like it is in the U.S. In Scotland, they have this process where a company will buy a barrel or more from a distillery, bottle it, and sell it as their own product, but also saying this is a Lafroig whiskey, something like that, under their own label. It's very common. It's not common here in the U.S. In fact, the only person I know who's done it for sure is the Crowded Barrel Distillery in Austin, Texas. They're just run by the guys who are on the Whiskey Vault channel and the Whiskey Tribe channel. So go check them out. That's really cool. I want to get my hands on some. It's kind of hard to get your hands on though. But so why is it frowned upon in the U.S. and it isn't in Scotland? The U.S., especially in the bourbon industry, everyone hits on the history and the heritage and the hand making of their own bourbon. No one wants to stray from that message, especially the big guys. So here in the U.S., when you hear someone didn't make their own product, it sounds sketchy. But it doesn't have to be. So a little background on how labeling works. Whiskeys and bourbons in the U.S. have to go through the TTB to get labels approved. The TTB, and this is something that's kind of new to me. I knew they had to approve labels, and you had to they require you to mark product correctly. Like if it's a bourbon, it has to follow these certain rules. If it's a straight bourbon, stricter rules. Obviously, bottle and bond. We talked about that kind of thing. But they also limit you on what you can put as well. So there's some aspects where that you can't be as transparent as you want to on the label. Now you can on your website and things like that, but they kind of limit you on that. So they're kind of at fault for the stigma as well. But anyway, basically, if you're sourcing a whiskey, whether it's White Dog, New Spirit, or pre-aged spirit, you have to say on the bottle what state your whiskey is distilled in. Now, you don't have to say who distilled it. You don't have to say you didn't distill it. But you have to say, if it's MGP located in Indiana, 9 times out of 10, if a whiskey says distilled in Indiana, it is from MGP. Now, there's other distilleries there, and I've actually seen a couple. They're a little bit smaller and rarer, so it's more than likely going to be in MGP. So that's kind of how you can tell if it's. Obviously, if it's a Kentucky straight whiskey, Kentucky straight bourbon, Kentucky straight whiskey, it has to have been made and aged in Kentucky. So that's a key. But also, spoiler alert, this High West whiskey I have here, it's a blend of bourbon whiskeys. But on the back, the label says it is a blend of Indiana and Kentucky bourbons. So it is a mixture of MGP bourbon and some Kentucky bourbon. I'm not sure where the Kentucky bourbon's from, but so each whiskey is at least 2 years old on this. I'll get more in detail when we go to the review, but that's just an example of a bottle that has been sourced. Especially those distilleries that do blends or famous for blends, like High West, or in Scotland, there's Compass Box. They're very open about where they are getting their whiskey from. But some distilleries get all their whiskey from other people. They don't blend it. They just sell it as their own brand. And again, there's still nothing wrong with that. So what happens is you want to be a bourbon distillery, right? You go into business, you start making product, and then you have to sit on it and age it for however long, usually around 2 years or more if you want a really good bourbon. But you're not selling things at the time, so you're not making money. Are you just going to lose money for 2 years? Maybe if you have enough money saved up, sure. But common things are either you start selling gin, vodka, or White Dog, or you start selling bourbon right out the gate by sourcing it. And as long as you're transparent about that, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're not being transparent about that, you're opening yourself to huge lawsuits. Like I believe Templeton Rye has run into issues, and so that's where you get kind of dirty when you're not open about what you're doing. I guess the moral of the story is sourcing isn't bad. It's lack of transparency of the sourcing that can be bad. So, going back to my example, if I open a distillery, I can go to MGP and say, hey, I'm looking for a bourbon with a certain flavor profile that I believe my bourbon is going to be like, and I want to start selling it now. They'll say, okay, again, as long as you meet their minimum, they'll be like, okay, we'll work with you. Come taste some barrels, see what you want. You can pick out your barrels, you can pick out your mash bill, different things like that, and you can bottle and sell that as your own brand until your bourbon is ready. Or if you just want to do that as your whole business plan, that's fine too. Just be open about it. But a lot of times what those, like I said, those non-transparent companies will do is there's a little bit of a loophole in the whole state thing. If your distillery is in the same state where you get your bourbon, even if you source it, you don't have to say what state it came from. Even if you do say what state it came from, it sounds like it's coming from your distillery. You don't have to say where you got it, and that's where people run into issues with trust issues. It's those companies that want the handmade marketing aspect, but aren't actually doing the handmaking themselves. That's where I run into a little bit of issue. But other than that, there's some really great sourced whiskeys out there. For example, I've reviewed Whistle Pig on this show, where now, okay, so Whistle Pig's end all be all goal is to be a single estate distillery. They are literally going to be growing the rye they have in their rye whiskeys, obviously distilling and aging it, but even growing the oak trees that they make their barrels out of. Like 100% of their business coming from their area. But they completely understand that they can't do that from the get-go. It's a lot of capital, a lot of time. So they sourced from Canada, rye whiskey from Canada, and they plainly state that. They say they quote-unquote rescued a poor whiskey from Canada and made it better. I just wholeheartedly believe they did, because it's delicious. What I have right now is from Canada. The rye is from Canada. Now, I finally have some stuff out that's from their own crop and their own distilling, so they're switching over. But that's a good example of that, starting out not wanting to sell vodka or gin to make money at the beginning, but to source. Another example, like I said, any company that blends for a living, those tend to, obviously they get barrels from other distilleries, and they blend stuff like that. Another big whiskey that source is Angel's Envy. They 100% source their whiskey, and then they finish it in barrels, either a port finish or rum casks for their rye, things like that. They're 100% source, and they make amazing things. And that brings us to our review today. So those two, the Angel's Envy and the Whistle Pig, I've already reviewed on the show. Should have reviewed it now, but it's okay. Today I'm reviewing a High West whiskey. Like I said before, this is the American Prairie Bourbon, kind of their baseline bourbon. It is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys bottled by High West Distillery in Park City, Utah. And the two whiskeys they blend are from MGP in Indiana and from Kentucky, and they don't say exactly where in Kentucky. High West is known for the crazy things. They have something called Campfire, which is a blend of bourbon, rye, and Peaty Isla Scotch, and it is delicious. It's funky. It's like a smoky bourbon. That's awesome. But anyway, this American Prairie Bourbon, it ran me around, I think, $28, and that might even be a little high. They have a batch number on here, 18B08 maybe, or 181308. It is 46% ABV, so 92 proof. So it's not the lowest, but it's not the highest either. And we're going to give it a quick little review. This bottle's about halfway empty, so it's not my first time trying this. Not a bad cork pop, a little quiet. Alright, so right away on the nose, it's classic MGP on the nose for me. A lot of MGP, I say classic MGP like I can tell them apart. A lot of the common MGP sourced whiskeys have a similar scent to me. Kind of like how I said all the Balcones whiskeys in the last episode have that same plastic undertone. There's a similar smell in these MGP whiskeys for me, but it's high rye to me. I think it's high rye because it's a little slightly nutty, but spicy for sure. Floral, perfumey is a better word. It's storming outside, so you're probably hearing some thunder right now. Sorry about that. It does have a little bit of nuttiness in there, though, that I often get for some lower rye, kind of midway, high corn whiskeys, bourbons. That perfuminess is definitely there on the taste. Get a little bit of nuttiness there. It's no Jim Beam product, that's for sure. It's got the classic vanilla, classic barrel notes, barrel tannins a little bit. I know, fancy word, right? It's not super oaky though. I want to almost say it tastes and smells young. because it says, I mean, it's age a minimum of 2 years. It didn't say how long, but it's no 8-year or 10-year bourbon. So when I said like I was talking about labels earlier in the TTB, a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, they can consider this. They can't consider this a straight bourbon whiskey. They can definitely say a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys because it is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. But, all right, let me get to. It doesn't really have a long finish, but it's it's pleasant. It's vanilla. It's not astringent or anything. Overall, it's a good whiskey. It's a good bourbon. And for the price, it's pretty good. It's unique. It has that. You can definitely taste a blend of flavors there. If you never had if you never had High West whiskey, it's a good, cheaper gateway. I want to try the Midsummer Night Dram from them, or like I said, I've had the Campfire. It's delicious. This is a good one. It fits right in there. Go check it out. My official rating, I'm going to give it a cocktail. Just because I don't want to give it. It's not amazing, not knock your socks off, but it's good, and it's sourced. So, see, sourcing's not all bad. All right, now for the final segment. It's I'm working on this name. Send me an idea, but it's listener interaction time, maybe. So this is the time where I'm going to answer a question, read an email from listeners, read a comment or a review. This is the time for me to answer your questions, address your concerns. Thank you for your compliments, but mainly address your concerns. This isn't me bragging, oh, look at all the 5-star reviews I got. But it's for me to learn and for me to maybe address things to you in a more public way. But today I'm going to read a review. This is my most recent review. This is from May 8th, 2019. It is a 5-star review, so thank you for that. It's from Picante Beef. So interesting username, but thank you for the compliment nonetheless. They said, the podcast is a great listen. The host knows his stuff and appreciate his fans. I really do. I hope y'all get that. I hope you know I appreciate y'all. Obviously, I wouldn't be here without y'all. I'll just be a man talking into a microphone by himself. I want to make this as interactive as possible. This is your show. I'm here to give you what you want to listen to. So let me know what you like, what you don't like. Obviously, go leave me a review or send me an email. You'll get on the show possibly, and I'll learn how to do better. That's what I want to do. I want to make this the best show possible, so I need your help for that. Anyway, this one's a short one because it's just reading a review. But hopefully I can take some more time and discuss things in this segment later on. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see y'all next week. Until then, follow me on Instagram. I'm really trying to build a Facebook. I like the little discussions we have in the Facebook. Maybe I'll start a Facebook group if we get enough. But go do all that. Until then, see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, go give us a review on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere else you get your podcast. Follow me on Instagram at bourbon_n_college. I'm on Twitter at nbourbon, and there's a Facebook page as well. Just search Bourbon in College. Check out my website, bourbonincollege.com. That'll have a link to anywhere you want to get the show. It'll have a link to my online store, all my social media. It's your one-stop shop for Bourbon in College. Again, thanks for listening. Want to support the show? Go check out my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show and get some really cool perks out of that. Alright, guys. See y'all next time. Bye.